What was that start? Formula 1 went to the Algrave International Circuit for the first time in its history for the Portuguese Grand Prix 2020. It was a race and a circuit that joined the grid after the global pandemic caused the entire 2020 Formula 1 calendar to be mixed up. I gotta be honest, first impressions of that circuit when we were watching practice was it was absolutely insane how undulated that track was. So many corners, you could see the next corner, but there was like so much circuit between those two moments because the undulation was so severe at that track. The cooler temperatures as well caused a little bit of havoc with the tires, but I think all in all that it was like nothing like Nürburgring levels of weather variance on the race. The tires were pretty good. I think once they got to about halfway through the race, everybody knew it was the medium tire that worked better. It did seem that when the softs fell off the cliff, that was it, but when the mediums fell off the cliff, they had like a second life and then fell again. So the mediums were lasting a lot longer, which gave cars an advantage towards the end of the race who were on the mediums versus cars who had changed onto the softs quite close to the end of the race, hoping that the pace advantage would keep up with the medium runners and allow them to re-overtake some cars that they lost position to when they pit. I think the first thing we have to definitely mention is a massive congratulations to Lewis Hamilton for taking his 92nd Grand Prix victory, making him the driver with the most Formula 1 victories in history. It's an absolutely insane feat. When Michael Schumacher set the record back in the day, I don't think anyone thought they would get anywhere near it. So to see Hamilton do it is an impressive feat. Like him or not, you have to commend him for the job he's done. And for anyone saying, yeah, well, it's just because he's always been in a dominant car, that's kind of how Schumacher did it too. So massive congratulations to Hamilton, it has to be said. It's an amazing feat. And that also leads quite nicely onto a theory I have about Hamilton, because at the moment he still hasn't signed a contract for 2021, which is a bit crazy. I mean, if he's going to sign again, which he's likely to sign again, he's going to sign with Mercedes. So it's really interesting to try and understand why he hasn't yet signed that contract, whether it's money, whether it's terms and conditions. I'm not entirely sure. I know, though, he's been talking a lot about other projects he has and things he wants to do after his time in Formula 1, which leads us to my theory. At the moment, he's in the best car on the grid, no doubt. His teammate is not really giving him a fight for the championship and hasn't been since he joined the team in 2017. There are no other cars on the grid that are anywhere near the Mercedes to really put a challenge on him for the championship. Every now and then he won't win a race, but 9 times out of 10 he's winning a race. I solely believe Hamilton is currently only racing for records. Why? Because he doesn't have any competition. And as great as it'll be to win pretty much every race you go and do, I think for a racing driver that can be quite boring. You want the competition. You want to win, but you want to fight for that win. You don't want to just know at the beginning of the weekend you're probably going to get pole and you're probably going to take the win unless something goes wrong for you, because there's no challenge and there's no competition. If everything remains as it does, which I stand by, it will definitely be the same next year, and I stand by until they change the engine regulations, the competitive order in Formula 1 will not change. Because of that fact, and the next engine reg change is due in like 2025, 2026, I think they've been talking about. Because of that, I think Hamilton only wants to sign a 1-year contract. I think he will do 8 and leave. There'll be no records left for him to beat. He will be the most successful driver in Formula 1 from a statistic point of view, and at that point, he has nothing left to do in the sport. He's got no challenge, he's pretty much winning every race, and there'll be no more records to beat. At that point, I think he'll walk, and I think this is possibly one of the reasons no contract's been signed yet, because Mercedes will want him to sign a multi-year contract, and I don't think he does. I think he'll want to sign like a 1 year with an option, which then enables him at the end of next year, when he's very likely to get the 8th championship, to walk away to go and do some more of his clothing thing or his music thing he's trying to pursue. He's got a lot of different ventures now that he's getting himself involved in, and his attention is being drawn to these other things because there's more fulfillment in it for him. And I completely understand that. It'll be very interesting to know how much detail we get out of that contract signing when it does eventually happen. But going swiftly back to the race, it was an insanely eventful beginning to the race. Can we just talk about McLaren for a minute? And also Raikkonen what the hell were those starts? McLaren did an absolutely epic job at the start of utilising those soft tyres against the Mercedes, who were on the medium. They had the grip really fast, they had the better pace, and Sainz was leaving Bottas for second by 1.6 seconds in one lap. That was mind-bending. But at the same time, it kind of then showed very quickly the performance of the soft tyre, in that within about 6 or 7 laps, the McLarens were dropping back, they couldn't keep up with the cars, and obviously the Mercedes are much faster than them anyway, so that was inevitable they were going to re-overtake them. But it really showed that performance drop from the soft tyres. They had about 6 or 7 laps of peak performance, and then that was it. They weren't necessarily undrivable, but the performance quality was completely gone at that point. Also, a massive mention to Raikkonen. He started 16th and ended the first lap 6th. That is a 10-place gain. I can't even understand how that happened without him jumping the start. And he didn't jump the start. Absolutely phenomenal start from Raikkonen. And it really electrified the race and really got everyone gripped in at the start. Because of the unknown of Algrave and because of the unknown of the circuit for the teams, and a lot of the practice sessions were stopped and delayed by red flags, so there wasn't a real great time to get a lot of tyre learning, so a lot of the learning happened in the race. It was a big unknown because, again, it was a circuit that was unknown, and even on Saturday through qualifying there were drivers still going over track limits, still learning where they could push and where they couldn't. Plus the wind effect at Portugal was absolutely insane. That was having a mass difference. The wind direction literally 180 throughout the race as well, so that was something for the drivers to have to deal with as well. A lot of unknowns. It was definitely, looking at the start, to be a very interesting race. Unfortunately, as the race went on, normality restored. The race in itself after that, probably about the halfway point to the end, was very pedestrian, very expected, very normal. Not really the excitement and the electricity we had at the start, but what a start that race had. And I do think, because of that element, I think Algrave could become a feature on the future Formula 1 calendars. It'll be interesting to see if we do go back, if things change, if things are different, if the wind is still such an effect, if there's anything the teams can do to fight back against the wind effect. I really don't think there is, so it'll be very, very interesting. But I do think of the new circuits, or the returning circuits that have come to the grid this year, I do think the Algrave International Circuit could be one that does return in the future. Top 3 we had, in the order we had Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, is the same top 3 we've had in 9 races this season. I think this is only like the 12th race. So that just goes to show, change the engines! How many times? It's the engines that's the problem. Have to talk about Ferrari, because there does seem to be a bit of a resurgence from the team. They brought the final bits to their update package for this moment to Portugal, and they predicted at the start of the weekend that they would be able to fight in the top 6 for qualifying. Didn't say anything about the race. So when Leclerc had his great qualifying, I was like, that's awesome, but can that translate to race pace? Turns out it could. Absolutely stellar job from Leclerc there. Couldn't really tap into the top 3. Not surprised about that. But it's the first race in a while he's been up in P4, had a really good gap behind him. Okay, a gap in front, so we couldn't close in the top 3, but he wasn't being attacked by the chasing midfield. Shows some good progress there from Ferrari. I don't think Sebastian Vettel gets on with this car at all. And I think the problem is his desire to make it fast is not there. Why would it be? He's going on to another team next year. He doesn't really care about this package or next year's package. So also, the team will be setting the car more for Leclerc than Vettel, so the car is already going to favour the Monaco driver versus the German driver. I don't think at the moment Vettel's mojo is really there. He's not really in the zone with the car. I think the love is lost there between he and Ferrari, and I just think it's kind of a moment where they're just counting down the races. Another absolutely stellar drive from Pierre Gasly to get him up to P5. He had a really good tussle with Carlos Sainz all the way through the race, but he did come out on top. I still think, really do think in my heart of hearts, he needs to be looking elsewhere than Red Bull. I don't think, Red Bull are not really the type to re-promote someone they've de-promoted. They just don't do that. And there was a comment from Christian Horner at the end of the race, interestingly, that kind of suggested that if they didn't hold on to Albon for next year, it could be someone outside of the Red Bull program who comes in. Now that's very, very interesting and could see a way in for Nico Hülkenberg, because Red Bull haven't done that since 2007 when they hired Mark Webber. That is the last time Red Bull, the senior team Red Bull Racing, had a driver in their car that did not come from their young driver pool. So it'll be a very interesting change in dynamic if they do that. At the same time, I wonder if they're kind of at the point now where they have Verstappen, such a young driver, you know, very, very talented, very, very likely to be world champion if he's in a car that can deliver the goods. I mean, he's driving the wheels off that car anyway. But it'll be interesting to see if they do pair him with someone with a bit more experience and a bit more savvy. I mean, I think anyone going into Red Bull knows they're a number 2. For Hülkenberg, I think it'll be a great drive for him. I don't mention Perez because one of the things I don't think Red Bull really do need is money, and so I think they will be looking at it on a talent-based thing. Now, Red Bull don't want to get rid of Albon, I think that's clear, but at the same time, Red Bull are not very forgiving for their drivers if they take a little bit of time to get used to things. And it was really interesting as well, actually, to keep going back to Horner, because he said that the Red Bull car was actually a lot harder to drive than was then Toro Rosso, but is now AlphaTauri. And that was kind of his excuse as to why Gasly was doing so well now when he maybe wasn't when he was in the Red Bull, which I thought was a little bit unfair to say that a driver's only performing very well because the car he's now driving is easier than one he was driving before. And in that case, if you've got a car that only one driver can drive, of course you're never going to find a good pairing for him. So that's something I think Red Bull definitely needs to work on. But the Red Bull seat, it's the first time I've believed potentially the second Red Bull seat may go to someone outside of the young driver program. That's an interesting thing though, because I don't know where that would leave Albon and Gasly. I think Tsunoda they want to pull in, but also Honda's just walked away. So there's no link there that would mean they kind of have to fulfill bringing a young Honda driver up. So that's interesting. It could be Gasly and Albon in the AlphaTauri next year. We will hopefully soon find out and be able to put all of this to bed. Like I said, amazing start from the McLarens. Good job from Sainz to get to 6th, or to hang on to 6th. He did a good job in fighting with them, did a good job optimizing the medium tyres at the end. A real shame for Perez to come 7th. Obviously he had the tangle with Verstappen at the start, which put him all the way to the back of the grid. He did an absolutely stellar job of keeping his nose clean for the rest of the race, racing through the field, managing the tyres. Importantly, he kept those tyres going quite a way into the race. Fortunately, as we've discussed, the soft tyres do drop off a lot quicker than the mediums and then don't come back, which kind of left him as a sitting duck to charging Gasly and Sainz behind, leaving him 7th. But a very good job from him. Really good job of showing his worth. I'm not sure he has a seat in Formula 1 next year. I think he'll be off somewhere else. There's talk of him going to Williams to replace Russell, which I'm real sorry. That would be a crying shame. Russell definitely deserves a shout in a better car than he's got now. And I'm hoping at some point Mercedes go, okay, it's time to move him up. And Bottas, you've had your time, but let's make way now. I also don't think that will happen until Hamilton leaves. It will be interesting if I am right and Hamilton does 8 and out, if 2022 Russell goes in next to Bottas. That would definitely be very, very interesting. It was an okay drive from Renault. Good job from Ocon managing the tyres, a bit like Perez. He did well there. Didn't suffer so much when he came out, but also couldn't make up any other ground to finish him 8th and 9th. And obviously we talked earlier about Vettel finishing off in 10th. We had one retiree, which was Lance Stroll, and I gotta be honest, in my opinion, Stroll's been driving a little bit recklessly through turn 1 over the weekend. Now, I won't agree with anything Verstappen said. His comments were unnecessary. There is an element of it, though, that heated in the moment. Not really. It's the downside for a Formula 1 driver, having the fact that their radio communication with their team could be broadcast at any point. So, a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. He didn't say it thinking it was going to be broadcast to millions, but at the same time, there's certain phrases cannot be said. And I do not think he should have said what he said. There were other ways he could have expressed his frustration, like Norris did in the race. However, to talk about the 2 incidents with Stroll, not really sure what's going on with that one. Stroll's had a few bad races recently. Okay, there was one he missed because of illness, but he's just, yeah, he was driving very, very recklessly. The Verstappen incident in practice, I don't know how we didn't see him. And I don't know how he got away with not getting any form of penalty or anything for that incident, because as I think was said at the time, if that happened during a race, someone would have got penalised, because that would have taken both cars out of the race. So yeah, don't know how he got away with that, don't know what he was doing. Very, very clear that Verstappen was on track with him and near him. I don't think he looked in his wing mirrors. I don't think the blue Red Bull is really invisible either, so I don't really know what happened there. I haven't really heard from Stroll, from his opinion on either of the incidents, so I won't talk too much about them because I only know one side, I've only heard one side, and I don't feel like I can form a concise opinion only having heard one side of the argument. However, with Norris, again, don't know what he was trying to do. He went off the track, over the curb, on the run down the main straight, to a gap that was never really there. Tried to utilize the outside. I don't really know, it didn't work. It really didn't work out. And the shame for that was Norris was having a really good race at the time, and that all got kind of thrown to the back because he got damaged from the incident with Stroll. But Stroll was our only retiree who retired because of those damages. Next up, we have Imola. It is a 2-day event. I've mentioned multiple times, I'm sure, how I'm not happy with that being something that continues into the future, mainly because of the effect it will have on fans. I'm pretty sure I've already said that, so I'm not going to go over that again. But it is going to be a 2-day event, which will be interesting. Please let me know what you think about it being a 2-day event down in the comments section below, because I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts. Again, it's a blank canvas. Nobody's been there. Nobody really knows the circuit. So Ferrari's probably got some good data on it, but the last time anyone was there was the early 2000s. The cars are very different. The track is probably a bit different too. So it will be very, very interesting to see what comes this weekend. Please do let me know what you thought of the Portuguese Grand Prix down in the comment section down below, because I love to hear your thoughts and I love to discuss this further once the camera has stopped. But for now, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute blast. As always, if you enjoyed this video, go show that like button some good old-fashioned love. And if you want to support the channel, go hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss next time I upload a video. Stay awesome, and I will see you all in the next video! Did this look Mercedes enough? I don't have any Mercedes gear I could wear.